So, episode 1 and 2 of The Acolyte have premiered on Disney Plus, the latest live action Star Wars show. Before I get into the review of the first two episodes, I want to say that this show takes place during the High Republic era. I tried reading one of those books years ago when they dropped the first one, and it didn't capture me. I thought it was very boring, and I never went back. So since then, I haven't checked out the High Republic, and I'm saying that because watching this show, if I'm supposed to know who all these characters are from reading the books, that ain't gonna be me. If you expect me to go into the history of these characters that existed during this time period, with the exception of the ones that we already know about as like Yoda and them, that ain't gonna be me. I have not gotten into the High Republic. I didn't find it to be that interesting, and very, very, very few people. In fact, the answer to very few is literally nobody, except one person in my life has told me to check them out. Everybody else I've talked to has said, don't waste your time, or I haven't checked them out either. It doesn't look that interesting. So if they expect us to know these characters ahead of time, that's going to be a big problem. So it's up to the show to develop these characters. And I'm leaning on the show to do that. Something else too is that this review is 100% my opinion. I have not gone out and looked at anybody's reviews on this show yet. I have not even read any spoilers for this show yet. I have read nothing, no leaks, nothing when it comes to this show. I was told that something happens in episode 3 that's really offensive to Star Wars fans or something like that. Don't know what that's going to be, but I guess we'll find out next week. This week, though, let's talk about episode 1 and 2. So episode 1 is 42 minutes. Episode 2 is 38 minutes. And it talks about how this saga or this story takes place 100 years before the Phantom Menace. It's the High Republic era, which I think started 200 years before the Phantom Menace, but we're now at the tail end of that apparently. And we open up with Carrie-Anne Moss, that's right, Trinity, and she is confronted by a mystery warrior who asks her to attack her. This mystery warrior is played by Amanda Stenberg, who's the main lead of the show. And I can already tell you from the hop, and I haven't checked any other reviews, but I guarantee you, because it's two women confronting each other, how many of these people on YouTube are going to say it's woke? Just because it's two women confronting each other. Then what happens is the Dark Warrior, the Acolyte, starts beating up a bunch of people in the bar, including men. That's going to lead to more people saying it's woke. I don't think that this is enough to make it woke, but some people on the internet seem to think that anytime you have a woman in anything action-oriented or a strong one, it's woke. I can tell you that I don't believe this is woke, at least not yet. But some are going to disagree because the lead actress is a big LGBT rights activist, and good for her. I mean, I don't know anything about her besides I looked up her information earlier tonight. So I've never seen her in anything before, so I can't judge her performances or anything, but I'm going to keep all that bullshit out of my review, because saying that something is woke as far as a criticism goes is so played out at this point. And yes, I know Kathy Kennedy recently made a comment about, men that hate women and how difficult it is to write women characters, which is bullshit. It's complete bullshit. I know that. That does not mean it's going to seep into this show, but we'll see. So I had to get that tangent out of the way, man, because I know what's coming. I just know. So, again, this woman beating up on these guys, she obviously knows the Force. So the Carrie-Anne Moss Jedi and her start to have a scuffle, and she's like, who trained you? No lightsabers yet. They just use some Force and martial arts stuff. And she uses, the Dark Acolyte uses these like little knives that look kind of like Chinese stars, like ninja stars, you know what I mean, like little knives. So she pops out the lightsaber. One of the knives go into her chest though, and the wound didn't even seem that deep, but she keels over and she's dead. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this seems almost too easy. this is a strange way to die. But I'm also thinking, wait, so they brought in Carrie-Anne Moss and put her in these trailers just to have her die? I have a weird feeling that she may come back later on, whether it be flashbacks or more appearances. In fact, I think there's a flashback coming up. I think we're not done with that character yet. So she goes down, and this is all before the opening title screen. So the story seems to be centered from the perspective of this mysterious warrior, but there is more to be revealed. So we're introduced to Osha, who looks just like the mysterious warrior. And there's a part where she has to put out a fire, or she sees a fire, and she starts hearing flashbacks, like having flashbacks and hearing voices. And that leads to these two Jedi showing up. And let me tell you, these robes look like they belong in a middle school costume party. I know that this is the clothing the Jedi wore during this era, but the costumes they actually made for this show look extremely Mickey Mouse. It just doesn't look authentic. For as much as I was not a big fan of the first 2 episodes of Andor, I can at least say that show had great costuming. Great work from that department. This looks a bit cheap. So she greets one of them whom she knew from back in the day. We find out that Osha left the Jedi Order 6 years prior. Then we find out that her family died in a fire before she came to the Jedi Order. This is on some Undertaker Kane shit right here. So they discuss that Master Indara, who was Carrie-Anne Moss, was killed by someone who matched Osha's appearance, but she denies it. So we're introduced to an Asian master at the Jedi Temple, and this is Saul, who ends up being like the main character of these first couple of episodes. Even though it's really Osha, Saul's the main Jedi. So we find out that Saul trained Osha, and he's made aware and that she's a suspect, but he doesn't think that she did it because of the relationship they had. So there's more that gets revealed as the episode goes on. So there's a scene where Osha's in prison with these other prisoners who want to break out. And this prison was so easy to break out of. It's like they didn't know what the prisoners' abilities were, and the prison break happened. Now, they wound up getting captured anyways. But they do this sequence that was almost... This sequence felt like something that was done by an amateur filmmaker who was trying to copy Guardians of the Galaxy. Am I the only one who thought this? Like, this gave off serious Guardians of the Galaxy vibes? So Osha's trapped behind the bars and tries to use the Force to grab this little droid that has like a torch attached to it named Pip. And she does do it. So every convict actually gets on the escape pod except her. And the ship crash lands on an ice planet called Karlak. So 3 prisoners got caught off screen. It was off screen. And they try to throw her under the bus saying it was all her idea. But Saul can sense that she survived the crash. She's alive. So then we see this sort of, I guess it's kind of like in her head or whatever, this flashback of Osa, and she has a twin sister named May. So clearly May is the Dark Acolyte. I'm kind of surprised that this was resolved so soon. This is episode 1 of an 8-episode series, and they've already resolved this. So that surprises me, because you would think that it'd be a mystery that would go on for a few more episodes where we're not really sure if we can believe her, and then we find out they were twins. But they just kind of went with it here. At this point, I'm thinking in my head, oh no, are they going to do that Force dyad thing again? Hopefully not, but you never know. So we find out, because Saul reveals that Osha's twin sister May is dead. So they're setting us up for some kind of twist or reveal later. You can already tell, because obviously May is the Acolyte. So Yord, who was that like guy that knew Osha, he's already very unlikable early on in the episode. Because he's a know-it-all, but he's wrong. And he's been a Jedi Knight for like 2 days. Literally, he says this. And he's already behaving kind of arrogant. So Saul and the Jedi, and I bet that'll be a factor later on. I'm sure it will, because I think a lot of these Jedi are going to die before the end of the show. So Saul and the Jedi catch up to Osha, and she recognizes him, and she tells him that she's innocent. She's like about to fall off this like sort of cliff in the ice planet, but as she slips, Saul catches her with the Force and pulls her up, and Osha tells Saul that May is alive. We then cut to another planet where May is at, and we hear this voice that sounds a lot like Ultron, man. It's not James Spader, but it had that robotic sound. And there's a mysterious warrior with a red lightsaber, and this appears to be like the hidden master who's telling May what to do, or at least helping her on her quest. And that is the end of the first episode. So, episode 2, and we're going to go right into it, and then I'll give you my thoughts on both of them together. Episode 2 is basically the continuation of the story. We go to this other like Jedi temple, a smaller one called Olega, or it's on a planet called Olega, and we see May and a white man, or a man in white robes, and he's Master Torben. So the Acolyte appears and asks him to attack her, but he doesn't move. So she tries to attack him, but he uses the Force to protect himself. Like, he's in such deep meditation that he's able to block everything she does. And I'm thinking to myself, this is what I wanted Yoda to do. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I wanted to see from Yoda, where he can take you apart without even using a lightsaber. Like, I like that. I always thought the true Grand Masters of the Force had these abilities. So I will say that was a cool ability, at least, but it's one that I kind of wanted to see more of. So a Jedi walks in who for a second I thought was Chris Penn, even though I swear for a split second I'm like, wait, but no, he would never do a show like this. So the Jedi send Saul, who brings Osha with him, to go investigate this attack. And meanwhile, May meets up with this guy named Chimere, and she reveals that she did not kill the Jedi and needs a weapon. And this leads to like this poison being a thing. So she goes back to Master Torben's for a rematch and goads him and taunting him about the past. So he drinks the poison and dies. Because of guilt, I don't understand this. This is not really the Jedi way. He almost committed Harry Carey. I don't like it. I think it's dumb. I'm sorry. And I'll go over more of this when I get to the end. Osha walks in, and of course the Jedi walk in, and May at this point had already left. The Jedi walk in and think it's her, but Yorg followed her and confirmed that she did not kill him. So she reveals the poison that was used to kill him is Bunta, and her and May learned about it when they were younger. So the plan that they come up with is to have Osha wear a wire, basically, to talk to Chimere. The galactic version of a wire, I guess, in a galaxy far, far away. And so she goes in, they're talking, and she's like, oh, he will be so pleased, discussing her master, the mystery that we saw a mystery warrior in black who sounds like Ultron that we saw at the end of episode 1. But Chimere realizes that no, it is not May. He's like, you look just like her. He realizes that, yeah, it's not May. So they find out that Saul kind of surmises, and they all find this out, that she wants revenge on 4 Jedi, and she'll be coming back in the evening. So Saul will confront her there. And she already took out 2 of them, so there's 2 left. With Saul, of course, Osha realizes that Saul's on the hit list of Jedi that May's trying to kill. And they have this conversation about revenge and what it does to people if you're consumed by it. You know, it's a pathway to the dark side. So May and Saul confront each other at night. May goes on the offensive, and they have this like martial arts styled battle. Now I will say the choreography for the martial arts is kind of cool. It's definitely something different for Star Wars, but not different if you've watched movies like Yeet Man or Ong Bak or any kind of, Eastern kung fu film. Like, you've seen this type of stuff before. But they did a pretty good job in executing it into Star Wars. Although it's still weird that you don't have Jedi, like, whipping out their lightsabers and at least, like, chopping off one of her limbs or something. You would think. Maybe not. Maybe they want to preserve her. Who knows? But Saul is so good that he takes her weapons. And he wants to know who trained her because she does not know the true Jedi arts. And so Saul starts to read her mind a little bit. And he senses that her master's hidden his identity, so not even she knows who it is. May had no clue that Osha was alive, and that's a shocker to her. So she's surrounded by a bunch of Jedi, so she uses the Force to kind of pick up sand and like whoosh it at them, and then pulls a ninja vanish and gets the hell out of there. So Osha and May see each other, and May now knows that Osha is indeed alive. She's about to leave. Osha blasts her but misses by a mile, I guess to scare her or to make it seem like she tried. She missed again. It doesn't make sense that she misses when the target wasn't even that far, but she was probably doing it on purpose because she might have empathy for her own sister and sympathy for her. So we find out, and I'm sure that'll be explained in later episodes. We find out the Jedi Council does not want to follow Saul's orders and instead decide to make a council about it first, a smaller one to discuss what to do. Which, as you know, was criticized, in other Star Wars pieces of media, that the Jedi always did stuff like this and that it was just too slow. So maybe they're playing into that. I'm not really sure. And what ends up happening is there's a scene where May meets up with Chimere and they discuss going to a Wookiee planet with a Jedi on it. We then cut to that planet. There's these two guys and the Wookiee Jedi sees them and like uses the Force on them and they lose their weapons, and that's the cliffhanger to episode 2. So the idea of a Wookiee Jedi, dude, like think about that. A Wookiee by itself is scary. A Wookiee Jedi, like we've seen them before. I mean, I've seen them in the comics. But it's pretty damn cool. It's a cool concept. But with that being said, okay, what do I think? I didn't hate these first 2 episodes, but I didn't like them either. They just felt very dull to me. There were a couple things, especially in the first episode, that I found straight up stupid. And it's going to be interesting to see how they tie this in to the main Star Wars timeline, because obviously the Jedi cannot know about the Sith yet because they are meant to believe they are extinct for millennia. So either this Dark Warrior is not a Sith, he's just another dark side user, maybe a Dark Jedi or whatever, or there's a cover-up and there are some Jedi that do know the story, or it never gets back to the Council anyways. I'm not sure which of those is going to be the response to all this, but I'm going to check out the next episode. However, I am curious about what this big event is going to be. I'm curious to see what they're going to do about it, but this just felt very low budget, honestly. It felt more like a Star Wars fan film than something that's made from Disney. And I'm saying that not in a way to bash it and not in a way to love it. It's just, if you were to ask me what my score would be for these 2 episodes, I would probably say a 5 out of 10. Right down the middle. There are some things I liked. There's other things I didn't like that much. It wasn't exciting. It didn't truly hook me for next week's episode. I'm not truly hooked on this story yet or interested that much as far as where it goes. As far as when it comes to the twins and everything, I'm more curious about how they're going to tie it into the main Star Wars universe. That's got me curious. But besides that, there's nothing here they did to make me really anticipate next week's episodes. It was just okay. It was just there. And I feel like most Star Wars fans, if the whole show ends up like this, it sounds like most Star Wars fans will probably just skip it and just not even think about it. Like, it won't be like Obi-Wan or Ahsoka where it'll be talked about a lot. I don't see that being the case, even though I am one of the ones who said I wanted more stories about the Jedi, especially Jedi from the past. But these characters so far are not that interesting yet. We'll see where it goes. I'm not going to stop watching yet. I will review next week's episode. Let's see. Hopefully it won't suck. So that's my grade. It's a C average. It's fine. Nothing too great. I think some people are not going to come back for the next episode because I don't think it did enough to hook them. I'm just curious, and we'll see where that goes. Those are my thoughts. What did you think? Let me know down below in the comments.